Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Now, the account of Nigeria in dealing with conflict has become history that may not be different from what other civilized and advanced countries have either dealt with or are currently confronting. Now, the multi-complexity of Nigeria and its peoples is a pointer to the fact that conversations must happen. And if they do, there's a chance of emotional outbursts which could lead to conflict. But at the center is dialogue, which provides a platform for finding a common ground in resolving disputes and embracing peace for mutual coexistence, development, and prosperity. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will focus on dialogue as a means of dispute resolution. But before we go into the conversation, let's get to see this report put together by correspondent Francis Fom.
Our attention has been drawn to an ongoing mobilization for a nationwide protest. This protest aims at bringing the attention of the government to the current economic hardship and high inflation. The planned protest appears to be as if it is steered by the masses who have been hit the most by the worsening economic hardship. Meanwhile, in a real sense, there are a faceless group of individuals championing the proposed nationwide protest from behind the scenes. This group of individuals can go to any length to set the country on fire and to make the country ungovernable at the expense of lives and property of innocent citizens because they do not get what they thought was their due in a Tinubu presidency. While we agree that there is hardship, we believe that the present situation is an inherited challenge that should not be resolved at the expense of the Middle Belters. We in the Middle Belt believe these efforts to set the country aflame are not motivated by altruism but by their selfish ambition. We are aware that paid thugs and criminals have been armed to cause chaos, unrest, ultimately destroying lives and property. Consequently, we wish to state unequivocally that all Middle Belters should stay calm and stay away from this planned protest that will destabilize our peace. We explore a better approach to communicate our thoughts on the current economic setback. Our premise for calling for this boycott is to the security of our people, the Middle Beltland, especially our countless rural dwellers who suffer incessant massacres from militia groups. While we acknowledge President Tinubu's effort to clean up the damages of the previous administration, we urge him to continue to be more equitable, particularly to the Middle Belt ethnic nationalities. We assure that we will never partake in destroying this effort to recover Nigeria. Those planning the protest have humongous funds to mobilize, misinformed, and push innocent citizens to occupy the streets of Nigeria with hidden agenda to cause violence, disruption. Having said that, we exhort the president to get back with his team to craft sustainable ideas that are capable of making life livable for Nigerians across the length and breadth of our country. If the present team is unable to deliver, the president should handhold those who can. In this, it is in the public space that the planners of the protest are plotting to lay military-style siege on the FCT by blocking entrance, exit routes to the city, all in the Middle Belt region, which would create confrontations with security personnel or isolate and make the seat of government vulnerable to non-state actors. We wish to also challenged President Tinubu to cut back on expenditure on public office holders in consonance with the reality in our country. Peaceful demonstration is a fundamental right for the citizens, but I'm telling you, it has its consequences. Not even in Nigeria alone. Check other politics of the world. We saw what happened in Sudan. We saw what happened in Libya. We saw what happened in Kenya. All these things, we should try as much as possible to avoid it. Sir, let me tell you something. Let me surprise you. These protests may lead or may reinforce existing divisions that may create more polarizations. I'm telling you, this protest has the potential to even revisit the sentiment of 1966 coup and even the 1967 Civil War. I'm telling you, because the sentiments are there buried on the ground. So this protest may lead that. Also, there are hijack, that is criminals that are waiting. I was in Apple Mechanics. I heard somebody was saying, if the protest started, he's going for a bag of rice. You get what I'm saying? So some people are waiting for opportunities to loot and everything. So we should be very careful. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, we had hoped to bring you a background report that would set the tone for tonight's conversation. That, unfortunately, was not it. However, what you saw there was a press conference which drew attention to certain events, the build-up to what is generally known around the country now as an upcoming protest regarding the situation in the country. That in itself is also part of what the conversation tonight should be addressing, and that's choosing dialogue over all forms of dispute that may, in the long run, lead to confusion. So, welcome once again to NTA Tuesday Live. Let me introduce our guest to you in tonight's conversation, which has to do with a place of dialogue in resolving conflicts. I'd like to welcome to the program Honorable Sunday Ashifon, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Students' Engagement. Thanks for being with us here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Right. Let me also welcome to this program Dr. Josephine Ogale Abraham, singer, film producer, motivational speaker, and CEO of Love to the World Initiative. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Right. And we are also joined tonight by Dr. Joseph Ochogu, who is Director General, Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution. Thanks for being with us here.
Good evening, Nigerians. Great to be in your studio again, Syria.
Right. And let me also introduce our next guest who's joining us from our Kano studio, Ambassador Zaidu Ayuba. He's the National President of the Ariwa Youth Consultative Council. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Evening.
We'll get to you as we go on. Yes, as you're aware of the nature of NTA Tuesday Live, at some point in time you can join in the conversation in the studio, but when it's that time, we'll remind you of the process and the procedure. For now, let's begin to look at the issues dealing with dialogue as a means of dispute resolution. And let's start off with the SSA to the President on students' engagement. And nation building is seen as a formidable task everywhere in the world. And people have always recommended dialogue in solving issues. How so for Nigeria and its various and numerous situations? I don't want to start using conflicts yet, maybe as we go on. Right.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here. As a former president of NAS, as an activist, before this position, we believe as a student leader and as a youth in the country that dialogue is the best. Even the First World War ended on a round table. Yes, there may be issue, but you look at the dialogue is when 2, 3 people have agreed, participants commit to listen and discuss issues. And there will be resolution, there will be result. But in a situation whereby we didn't give room for such, it can lead to so many things. It can lead to anarchy, it can lead to chaos, it can lead to, damage of properties and what have you. But as a youth and as a student leader, we believe so much in dialogue. And that is the way to go, even in church, in mosques, in the house, between parents, between husband and wife. They sit down together, they dialogue when they have issue, and they resolve it. But if they fail to do, people outside will hear what they are cooking. So dialogue is a means of getting the best result.
Okay. We'll return to some of the issues later on, but let's come to Dr. Joseph Abraham. Place of dialogue in dispute resolution.
Well, the first thing is communication. We must be willing to communicate very clearly and transparently, to the extent that if you think you've actually, most times when people when there are disputes, everybody's looking at it from his own point of view. So it's important that everybody all the parties get to a point where you are seeing where the other person, you're able to see where the other person is sitting and what he's seeing from there. And if you see where I'm sitting and then you can see where I'm coming from, you can see my perspective, then it's easier for you to understand my sentiments. Yeah? So that way, dialogue is easy to handle. But if everybody stands where he's standing and say, yeah, this is what I believe and this is what I see, and so everybody has to see it my way, it's not going to work. So we must be willing to communicate very transparently, and we must be willing to even admit when we have done wrong, or even actually apologize for the hurt you have caused the other person, whether it is deliberate or not. So dialogue is just the way to go, as a matter of fact. If you do not engage in dialogue, then everybody is going to tear everything in pieces. But you still come back to dialogue for everything to be settled at the end of the day.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Well, Dr. Joseph Ochogu, we come to you to put in perspective for us the whole concept of conflicts, resolution, and dialogue. You're the Director General of the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, and you've had years of working in this field. So put this in its true context for us.
Thank you very much. I think it's important to just state the obvious, that wherever there is a human existence, that is human beings exist, conflict is inevitable. That is to say, where you have human beings living together, there will always be conflict. Also, it's important to try to draw the line between disputes and conflict. Disputes, it's an aspect of conflict, that has not escalated to a point where you say it is not resolvable. And it's also important to state the obvious that there are different types of dialogue in terms of when you want to engage in dialogue. Dialogue can be destructive and it can be constructive. That is to say, it can be violent, it can be peaceful. The kind of dialogue, that we try to advance, profess, and advocate for is the peaceful dialogue component of it, which, of course, like Dr. Josephine rightly mentioned, issues around communication. The need for two parties, both party A, party B, or two institutions. On the other side, both the state and the citizens, have some common ground for understanding and communicate properly. And the reason why communication is very central on the issues of dialogue, is to enable both parties to understand the positioning, of party A and party B, as well as the interest. What precisely is the interest? And I think that is where the issues around dialogue came from. And I think like the senior special assistant to Mr. President have rightly mentioned, you know, if you go back to youth activism and the NSAS protests, and that is why I want to caution, you know, advisedly, if you look at the NSAS protest, when it started, there was a dialogue mechanism that was put in place by the federal government of Nigeria where all the 7-point demands were met. But what did we see? We saw that the entire process, you know, was hijacked by who knows what. And then the dialogue mechanism, you know, translated negatively into issues around violence and all that. And that is why dialogue by whatever group, you know, that want to engage in the parties in terms of communicating with government or communicating along whatever lines of disputes, there is a need, you know, to have a much more peaceful approach, you know, to that dialogue. Because once you have a peaceful approach to dialogue, I'm understanding you, understanding my position. I think the federal government of Nigeria and the Nigerian Congress just came out of a very serious, rigorous, you know, and profound dialogue process, you know, over the issues of minimum wage. You know, we took a very long period of time. That is a typical example of a very constructive, you know, and peaceful dialogue mechanism, which to a very large extent did not affect the developmental needs, you know, of the country. So you see Labour on one hand have an understanding, the federal government to have an understanding. Yes, the federal government are willing, and I make it very clear, and I'm going to repeat it this evening, that there is no government in most places anywhere in the world that is out to ensure that the citizen suffers. And the same thing with the police. The police in everywhere is the front line for human rights prevention, for human rights protection. But I think sadly, the way society have gone and the way communications too have gone, government is seen as enemy of the citizens, and it's not correct. And I think that that is not, because if you look at the 8-point agenda, priority agenda of the president, there are issues around inclusion, there are issues around job security, there are issues around food security. So what we expect is a dialogue, a conversation between the Nigerian citizen and the state over how do you achieve this dialogue and what are the pathways to achieving this dialogue. We know we are going through times, but at the end point, what do we have at the end point? So those lines of communication between the state and the citizens must be very clear. And I think one of my panelists talked about issues around transparency. You know, in dialogue, oftentimes, for you to arrive at a peaceful dialogue and resolution, there must be that peaceful, you know, disposition, that transparent disposition of the interests of both parties and the positions of both parties, and the willingness to, you know, to make amends in terms of shifting positions, you know, for peaceful coexistence. I think I'll leave that as my opening for now.
All right, fantastic. We'll come back to it. You've raised so many issues that at least those are things that we'll talk about in greater detail when we return. But let's go to our Kano studio, where we have Ambassador Zaidu Ayuba, the National President of the Arewa Youth Consultative Council. And good to have you join us tonight. And it's dialogue. The topic is dialogue as a means of dispute resolution. And how well have we fared? We've just listened to Dr. Joseph Ochogu define for us conflicts and dispute. How well have we managed this?
First of all, I would like to speak from two perspectives. One as the president of the Arewa Youth Consultative Council, and then secondly, as a student of Masters in Conflict and Security Studies. I am also a student of Dr. Joseph Ochogu, and one of my area of interest is the area of protests across the globe entirely, not just in northern Nigeria, in Nigeria or in Africa. And my research have shown to me that from 2006 to 2020, all across the globe, we had over 2,809 protests, with over 369 in Africa alone. Now coming back to Nigeria, we have seen how protests, disputes, and so many other things happen that are unpleasant in nature. And we have seen how, had there been a proper dialogue, those protests could not have happened. And now we can see how we can be able to introduce dialogue into resolving all forms of crisis, to avoid all forms of dispute, to even avoid going into the dispute, not to talk of dispute resolution. One thing I see is that the government and other critical stakeholders in our society, for example, in Nigeria as a state, other critical stakeholders like people from the corporate sectors, the traditional rulers, the women and youth groups, the religious leaders, business moguls, and so many other people that are supposed to come in so that they can be able to see how they will dialogue some of these issues. Just like how the two doctors have earlier said, the issue of communication. We have a lot of broken communication in our homes, in our institutions, in the society. People are mistaking government or other institutions in government, for example, the police, the military, and other law enforcement agencies to be their enemy, which was not correct. People are beginning to, have that negative perception that simply because Mr. A is rich and I am poor, Mr. A is my enemy. Or because so person is in the position of power or authority, that person is actually adding into my suffering. It is agreed that all over the globe, there are economic tumults currently going on. The world is battling with a lot of economic crisis, and Nigeria is not an exception. Now, this is where we need to understand that we need to find ways to be able to resolve some problems before they happen. Where is the National Orientation Agency? Where is the Ministry of Information and Communication and so many other agencies that could come together and put hands on deck to see how could they reach down to the grassroots segment of the society. When you come to northern Nigeria, for example, you can hear currently news about people planning for protest. And this is where everyone needs to understand that it is our responsibility to come out en masse. Those who are at the helms of affairs, be it in the government, be it in your as a leader of an organization, be it a woman leader, be it a youth leader or whatever. How do we come together to educate people? Because we resolve each problem through the use of communication. How do you communicate to people? What do you tell them? How do you enlighten them? A lot of people think something negative, whereas if they could dig deep, what they will find is positive. Just like I told you, all across the globe, there's over 2,809 protests. When you look at all the protests in Africa, you realize those protests happen because of issues around failure of political system, issues of human rights, issues of civil, so many other issues that I believe if we begin to get into effective communication, we will be able to reduce the tension, the misinformation, the hate among us. We should remember that Nigeria is currently having issues that are related to divide, political differences, tribal, ethnic, religious. And if we continue to allow some of these issues to surmount, only God knows what protests can actually fall into. We have seen in 2020, the NSAS protest. It only began as a mere protest, but as it keep on going, we can see how it's escalated into claiming lives, destroying properties worth billions of even dollars. So I believe with dialogue, we can be able to educate those who were educated, and we can be able to enlighten and create positive enlightenment to those who actually have less knowledge of what is happening or what actually need to be done. Thank you so much.
Back here in Abuja. Well, first, in addressing this issue, you need to look at what leads to disputes and conflict resolution. Zaidu Ayuba has just mentioned a few of them, which he talked about most of the conflicts and disputes in Africa having to do with, governance issues. And where there is a breakdown of dialogue, and he's also talked about the mutual suspicion between leaders and the led. Now, in Nigeria, these have always been the issues. So over time, what has been the experience in trying to address this? if this has been a recurring decibel, as they say?
Well, thank you so much. Let me start from my own office. Like when I came on board as the president, and as the former president of NAS, when I was president, there's a lot of issue between the federal government and ASU, and which took us almost 9 months. I was a student at home. Then I felt there is need for me as an SSA to the president, one, to move closer to ASU, move closer to students. Students, what are the issues? I don't want to see you on the street before I come into your issue. Come to me. Let me know your problems so that I can take it to appropriate quarters. Then I begin to engage the student leaders, the head of organizations. I begin to engage them. Then at the time I came up with stakeholder dialogue on safe school project. I also came up again with stakeholder dialogue with student leaders, which I visited Zamfara State in engaging with students and the management, top management of our institutions. And as we speak today, the government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has also kick-started from the youth angle. In the youth ministry today, the Honorable Minister for Youth has been moving from one state to another. Sometimes, last 2 weeks, myself and him, we were together in Edo State, try to engage with the youth. Like everybody have said, the way people are looking at things, particularly when you are outside the government, anybody in the government, they believe we are one. And if anything is happening there, if you are telling them what is happening, they believe you are defending your principle. But to us, we know what is happening, and we are trying to also pass the information to them. Like I have said, and everybody have raised here, when there is a gap in communication, like in my own area, which is student, and as I speak to you today, different numbers of students have come up in addressing a press conference. They won't be partaking in the coming up. Why? The president himself, during electioneering, he promised what he thinks he can do for Nigerian students. And some of what he has promised, he has started fulfilling it. And last week, Wednesday, what has never happened in Nigeria happened. The student loan, that a lot of people are calling it audio, was physically being happening. Check were being given to head of institution, and some students felt, so this can happen in this country. And as an SSA to the president, like I have said, I keep engaging them. Any issue they have, once I get it, I inform the necessary office that I think I need to. Some set of students came from Benin Republic. They were talking about the issue of fake results. They called me and I asked them, once you get to Nigeria, let me know. And they came to my office. And after they discussed with me, I take them, myself and them. We went to meet with the Minister of Education. We discussed things that was not clear to them. There, it was clear. And they went back to their school. And I believe if people like us who are in the position of authority, who have an answer to give any question, is that at the youth level or at the student level or in any ministry, when anything is happening in your ministry and you think there is need for you to inform the public, this is what is happening. I'm sure once they hear what you are saying, it will be very easy. You communicate with them, they get what you are doing, and they will take it down. I look at what my brother have said, the president of Arewa Youth. Yes, the National Orientation Agency, they are saddled with the responsibility of informing people. And these days that I was discussing with someone, information is all about people reading newspaper. We need to go down to the grassroots and inform them about the policy and the program of the government. And if you see a lot of people, the problem we are having today in Nigeria, when you look at the policy and program of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, probably those policies of the president is not going down with them. And what they are looking for is a way of bringing the government down. And it's all left for us again to also engage and let them know that this is what the president has promised and this is what he's doing. The president has just spent 1 year in office. Someone coming on board as a president is not a rocket science. It's not something that someone can just come and say they want to fix everything in a day. So automatically, as a youth, as a student in Nigeria, we need to be patient. We need to also understand and also open a dialogue, like the doctor have said the other time. During the NSAS, when the government came up and said, okay, they set up at National Assembly a committee to listen to them. Number one, they discovered that even the protests do not even have a leader. Again, when they even came up with their agitation, the government was even trying to look into it. But the reverse is the case. Like I have said, why the government was trying to find a solution to the problem, the demand they have laid down, we discovered that they turned into something else. It means their aims and objective was not even what they are protesting for. They divert from it, from answers. They ended it to say they want to end bad government. Before you know it, they said they don't want police at all. They said they don't want this again. So at the end of the day, even the government was now asking, what is that your request? You have asked for 7 things, and we were ready to provide solution to it. But because they could not even come up with a concrete reasons why they are on streets. And like my brother have said, the president of Arewa, he said most of the news that they are hearing in the northern part of the country is about protests. And I call again to every reasonable youth group, civil society, student body, who understand that government is not a rocket science, should be able to also come up. And even political appointee, governors, House of Rep members, local government, to also inform them about the policy and program of the president. Yes, it's obvious that people who the policy of the president is not in line with are the one who are trying to bring people up. And because to me, I can say it, is it the Kaduna, that I've visited Kaduna since I became SSA to the president more than 2-3 times. I've engaged different students, different youth groups. We also have other youth groups in this government who has been moving from one place to another. I was in Jos last weekend when that school collapsed. I went there to pay a condolence. Why some of the essay to the president on youth initiative was in Katsina, engaging with youth, dialogue with them, asking them what are the problems, what are the challenges, what are you facing? Okay, what the president promised you is at the pipeline. Now the one the president has approved, she told them. But like I have said, we still need more communication. We still need more, to inform our people. Because when you are not informed, you will totally be deformed. So that is it.
Well, Dr. Josephine Abraham. Yes. At what point there's a breakdown in you started talking about communication.
Yes.
Communication, well, it's a two-way thing. And for where most of the time communication is flowing only in one direction.
Yes, exactly. So I like to scatter this table a little bit. Let me speak as one of the masses. We are hungry. Let's just really face it. There's something going on right now. What's going on in the country is this. They're saying that people are hungry. Let me speak for us, masses. We're saying that we are hungry. There's no food on the table for people to eat. When you go to the market, your salary is unable to buy you the things that you need because the prices of things are so expensive. So to somebody who is hungry out there, he's angry also. If you want to speak from TV, you want to get people in a symposium and get people in a hall to say you want to do communication, you want to communicate with them and pass across to them government's policies, it's not going to work.
So what do you do?
Okay, so what happens is this. I have real life experiences of dealing with especially militants, people from the Niger Delta region, working with a certain group of people trying to resolve disputes as a result of a right of way that's supposed to, there's a pipeline being passed. And so because of that, some people come up to say, they didn't pay me for my land, they didn't pay, so you cannot come, you cannot work. So, and then I had a situation where the youth had all decided we're going to kidnap all of us who were working on the field. They were going to kidnap some of our engineers. And I got the information. When I did, I wanted to know who are the key leaders of this thing, who is planning it, who is spearheading it and all of that. I stayed up all night calling all of them on the phone and said, you know what, I want to hear your grievances. I want to hear who was not paid. I want to make sure that everybody is paid. So everybody gather to me. Bring all the leaders together. Bring me the cameras. Bring me the photographers so that everybody can air his views. You know what? The organization I'm working for, right, is not happy that some of you are not happy because the pipeline is going to pass through here, and when it comes on stream, you're going to be the one to take care of it. So to ensure that nobody vandalizes it. So for that reason, nobody should get you angry here by not paying you. So let's find out where the weakest link is. Who didn't pay you? If you were not paid, then we'll make sure that you're paid. So what did I do? I brought the whole, I sent buses, sent, material. So they all gathered together. Now everybody has his views. Everybody said this is what offended me. Now with this, we now know where the problem is.
So inclusion is a key to resolve it.
Yes, you should listen to the people. If you don't listen to them, they will come out and protest. It's just like a child in the house, right? If your child is trying to get your attention, you see little kids, when you're talking to your wife or you're talking to visitors who come in, right? You see them, they start to look for ways to cry and make trouble with you because you're not listening to them. You have excluded them. You're just talking and then they are just there like they're nobodies. So they will pay attention when they start whining and crying. So they cry. If you do not listen to the people, they will come out and protest so that you can hear. But on this occasion, I know that Nigerians are watching us, so I like to use this opportunity to say that, you know what, everything you're crying about that makes you want to come out, they have heard you. They have all heard. There's nobody who has not heard the real reason why you want to come out and protest. The ones who are spearheading it from on the ground, right? They have their motives. But the ones who want to come out, they don't know why they want to come out. It's because they are hungry. They believe that if they come out and cry, then their problem will be solved. But it will not be solved by coming out to fight. You're just going to be speaking to empty air. You're not talking to anybody directly like the SSA to the president has said. If you do not have a strategy, I'm speaking for us now, masses are big. Let's have a strategy for engaging with governments. Let's even really strategize and say, where are the problems? Especially for those of us who are intelligent. We have among us, among the masses, those who are not educated, they won't even understand what the protest is about. And like the Arewa Youth Council president has said, everybody's just going to vent his anger on a perceived enemy. And it will become a day of rage. It will not be like protest anymore. So these people should be listened to. Where are the House of Reps members? They're representing you somewhere. There are people they are representing. They should go and listen to them and bring their grievances forward. The senators should go and listen to their people who they are representing. So they can't, so that the people don't come here to protest everywhere and just shouting into the air with nothing presented to government to work on.
Okay. All right. In addition to the conversations here in the studio, we have a number of reports. Let's get to see this report.
Nigeria's recent demographic data shows approximately 220 million population and rich in both human and material resources. This huge destination of potentials has, however, been threatened by activities of insurgency and banditry in the north, and IPOB and Niger Delta militia and other violent groups in the south.
We must have understanding of the issues involved, and that requires careful dissecting of the issues. And so critical reasoning is helpful if you must resolve particularly complicated conflicts. You must be able to understand what are the root causes of those issues, what are the things that are manifesting and demonstrating that that conflict exists, what are the parties involved, and how can you use communication essentially to bridge the gap that has created that conflict situation.
Now, setting an agenda for national peace and social cohesion, dialogue is fingered as a major tool of resolving conflicts rather than resorting to arms.
Dialogue helps you to include different shades of opinion and people on an issue. Again, conflict happens when people do not feel they are carried along. They do not feel they are on the same wavelength with some other person who ought to be on the same wavelength with them. And so with dialogue, you are able to include people. You are able to capture different shades of opinion. And our world is such that God created us to share this environment with different kinds of individuals and groups. Every one of these individuals and groups has his or her interests.
Stakeholders say Nigeria must embrace international standards of managing disagreements and tensions to avoid monumental damage that will negate the efforts towards the journey to nationhood.
Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Understand your limitations as a basis for understanding the limitations of the other person. So once you agree not to make the other person feel the way you wouldn't want to feel, there is most likely very little chance of you having conflict that will stay for very long.
We cannot overemphasize the fact that peace and security are relations which must be harbored by all and sundry. We all have our part to play in order to enjoy the tranquility of life.
Experts opine that for Nigeria to live up to the dreams of its foundation fathers, all hands must be on deck in promoting national consciousness for peace, stability, and social harmony. Francis from
Our next report comes from Maiduguri.
The method is seen as a veritable tool for building bridges, healing wounds, and bringing hope. This non-kinetic strategy emphasizes mutual understanding, addresses diverse interests, and provides a pathway to resolving conflicts and fostering sustainable peace.
The only sustainable option is a dialogue. Though as a human being, there are many ways of how you can resolve your conflict, but if you want a sustainable one, the dialogue is the best option.
Having gone through over a decade of insurgency, the reintegration initiative of the Borno State government has brought about relative peace as it facilitates discussions between and amongst communities and the insurgents who have laid down their arms and ready to embrace peace.
Dialogue plays a very, very significant role in such a way that it creates a communication where all the stakeholders and all parties can now listen to each other.
There are a lot of household disputes, land dispute that arises, and we use dialogue. We bring the two parties together. We bring people that are neutral sometimes into the issue, and those people that are neutral will sit down in between and discuss, and people voice out their own voice, and at the end the problem are resolved permanently.
Where military interventions have proven insufficient, this strategy focuses on resolving conflicts through peaceful means leveraging on negotiations, mediations, and reconciliation. As Borno trudges on through the path of recovery, dialogue remains the light at the end of the tunnel, as it stands out as a beacon of hope, building mutual trust and understanding, managing diverse interests as the state moves closer to a future free from the clutches of armed conflicts. In Maiduguri, Yarweya Umar.
And now let's go to Akure for this other report.
Nigeria, a nation characterized by its ethnic, religious, and political diversity, often faces the potential for disputes. Research indicates that while various approaches are employed to address these conflicts, they do not always produce the desired outcome. Experts, however, believe that dialogue can help communities tackle underlying issues before they escalate, thereby promoting long-term peace and stability.
Creating a safe and inclusive environment. What it implies is having an environment where people of diverse culture, diverse status, different religion and ethnic can freely rub minds together. Safe and inclusive space. Ability to be able to resolve conflict at the communal level has a long way to determine what is going to happen in the larger society.
Investigations also show that traditional leaders play vital roles in conflict resolution within their communities by leveraging their deep understanding of local traditions and values, maintaining social order, and resolving disputes amicably.
Once there's conflict, it's easier for the Oba to invite the people involved and make sure that they come to dialogue or talk to them one-on-one. Because we live with them, we are the grassroots, closer to the people. So settling issues becomes very, very easy.
Religious leaders in their submission emphasized fostering harmonious relationships through dialogue is essential for peace and progress.
Dialogue is a tool, is a means by which we can be able to live together peacefully in our community. So as Muslims, we used to employ dialogue, very well in our dealings, because this is a way that will bring progress.
It is a gateway to peace and development, whether religion, family, or nation. If you want peace, if you want progress, you must embrace dialogue. Even when there's crisis, embrace dialogue.
Those respondents agree that as Nigeria continues to navigate its diverse landscape, embracing dialogue as the primary means of dispute resolution is crucial for sustainable development and harmony. In Akure, Abiola Rio.
All right, we're back in the studio now from having watched those three reports. Dr. Chogu, you find the situation where the people, now I'm talking about disputes and conflicts between the state and citizens, where people believe that their leaders are isolated from the realities, and therefore the only way to draw attention, to draw the attention of the state, is a form of mobilization where issues can be brought to the fore. Now, isn't that part of drawing attention to a plight? Must what is called, I think, perhaps the use of the word protest now connotes something else. But isn't mobilizing for a mass appeal, isn't it part of drawing attention to issues?
I think that first it's important to situate the context, upon which these developments, are evolving, within our society. One Existential reality can be very objective in terms of how people relate. I think that she talked about issues around, there is no doubt, we are currently going through a hyperinflationary dynamics, within our society. That puts a lot of pressure, a lot of households. So what do you do on the supply side, which is the government side? The government have rolled out several policies, macroeconomic policies, monetary policies, as well as palliatives, to provide immediate cautionary needs, of the people. For example, I think I'm very much aware that the president have authorized, the distribution of over 3,000 bags of rice to each state of the federation. But you see, we operated a three-tier system of government, the three levels of government in terms of the federal, the state, and the local government level. I'm super glad, that the president, through the Attorney General of the Federation, have secured, the autonomy, for the local government arm of the government. And I think that while we are seeing this level of protestation at the federal level, and it's looking like the federal government, that is the overwhelming pulse bearer, for national stability and cohesion. The real point, for societal cohesion is at the local government level. And you and I know that for a very long period of time, the local governance system has been very weak. So therefore, the delivery component, that is in terms of the supply side of the government to the people, is weak. So whatever the federal government is going to do, how that percolates from the federal level to the state level and down to local government level becomes a little bit problematic, because the presence of government, at the local government level, which is the frontline, agency of the government for conflict resolution management and distribution, as well as service delivery, will be weak. And I'm happy she has mentioned that the federal legislatures, both the Senate and members of the House of Rep, should perhaps go to their constituency. And I know that they are very sensitive. I won't be surprised they go on recess for a long period of time to try to address some of these grievances at the grassroots level. Because the problem actually is at the grassroots level, where the people, need to be enlightened, educated, on some of the things that are happening. There are global challenges, and there is nothing much you can do about it because of the global structure of the economy, which for a very long period of time, since 1986, with the structural adjustment program, the neoliberal economic policies, have increasingly increased the gap between the rich and the poor, even among nation states, so also among individuals, and all that. So, and that is why I am impressed, with the 8 priority point agenda of the president that speaks around issues around inclusion. And I had expected, enlightened citizens, for example, to have asked, questions on in government. What exactly are you talking about inclusion? Is it social inclusion? Now, what level of social inclusion are you talking about? Is it economic inclusion? What level of economic inclusion are you talking about? And I think that we need to begin to unpack these things, for the Nigerian citizens to begin to understand. For example, we've seen labor relations being dealt with in a more peaceful, amicable way through dialogue mechanism. We've already seen the issues around poor students who are not able to pay their fees and all that being included in terms of the National Student Loan Scheme, for students. We've seen a lot of other incentives in terms of the medium, small scale, medium industries, and whatever kind of measures that are being meted to those things. I think that what the demand side should do, which is the citizen side, is to see how to hold accountable this other supply side to ensure that the policies and measures that the president and his cabinet are churning out are reaching to the people, because that is where the weaknesses are. I've had privilege of serving in government for a very long time. That is the work that I've done, all the while. I've served both the PDP, the APC, and all that before becoming the Director General, of the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution. So what I can say is that we as Nigerians must come together to begin to see how we ensure that the local government system works. If the local government system does not work, there is so much if the president does or the state governor do that can work at the grassroots level, because that is where the people reside. So we need to capacitate the local government systems, to ensure that whatever grievances people do, the local government is a frontline agency of government, to address some of these in terms of dialogue, in terms of engagement, stakeholders engagement. The traditional rulers are in local government. You and I were in a local government, that is the Abuja Municipal Area Council. So we need to see the local government actually work and reflect, the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerian citizens. The state, in terms of state governors, and the federal level, they are a bit of abstraction. Abstraction in the sense that they don't have any ground they are seated on. As a matter of fact, they are tenants, in a local government council. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. So we need to capacitate the local government system to ensure that it works. And we need to, and this is an opportunity, with the judgment in the Supreme Court, to begin to ensure that the local government in our respective 774 local governments begin to work. Once they begin to work, the ward areas too, the political wards in all the respective local government areas too, will begin to work. And we'll begin to see service delivery on the part of the government in terms of either rural feeder roads construction for farmers, in different wards areas, which they will have to, local governments will have to grade roads to allow farmers to come with their products from the villages. Issues around farmer headers too will easily be addressed at the local government level, and all that. Because the point is that the state, as a government, is a custodian of a lot of things in terms of the hard power, the soft power, to manage the affairs of society on behalf of the people. We have the tri-service, the military, we have the police, the intelligence agency, and all those arms of government. But if the local government system is weak, everything, these other arms of government are doing, I'm going to assure you that they're really going to be weak. And that is why it's an opportunity that we all need to take, and we need to advocate for it. Some of us have been working around this space, for over 15 years, advocating for local government reforms, local government autonomy, to unpack the joint local government and state account, and to ensure that local government are able to deliver these things. So the judgment, I think, from the Supreme Court is a very good one. How we begin to make demands to ensure that these local governments begin to work, I think is a very important thing. Because if we don't do it, we'll still begin to have ungoverned spaces. The federal government, even the military, they will all be struggling, to see how they counter some of the threats, that we face in the local community. So our local government must work.
Okay. At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, there'll be other issues pertaining to dialogue and dispute resolution. So stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Right, thanks so much. And the conversation continued behind the scenes, even as we were on a break. And this demonstrates the whole concept of dispute resolution. Now, this segment of the program is when hopefully we open the phone lines and you can get to join in the conversation in the studio. And as we say every Tuesday, if you're calling in and your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we always encourage those calling in to go straight to the point so others can also get on the platform. And as we say, don't worry too much about the greetings. Just a simple hello is fine. Now, we still have a number of reports, and we'll start up this taking this one from Kaduna.
The organized society is a forum of people from different backgrounds, orientation, and ideologies for the purpose of achieving common goal. Misunderstanding and disputes are part of human life in its daily interactions. However, the ability to resolve these through dialogue remains the surest way towards the attainment of a peaceful society.
And it is only through dialogue would you be able to provide for the most conducive environment whereby so many other things will gain momentum within the society.
People will sit together at a round table. They will discuss the issue. They will come together. Maybe the other person will leave his high horse, come down. The other person too will leave it and come down. Then they will meet at a meeting point. At that meeting point, that's where the dialogue takes place.
Dialogue has been a cultural phenomenon in Nigeria. It has been a traditional practice from ancient times, and we have vast array of knowledge, indigenous practices. All we need to do is to revive this, to research into this, and to train our young populations, to train our youths, bring in our women, particularly our numerous mothers that are contributing daily in dialogue at the home, in dialogue at the communities.
In the same vein, dialogue has scriptural backing.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for instance, the Quran said, if two groups of believers are in conflict, Allah said, make settlement among them, reconcile between them. How do you make the settlement? By bringing them together, sitting them down, calming them down, allowing each and every one of them to, say his mind. And then from there, you can be able to say, okay, now, but this is what is the best thing.
And 2 Corinthians made also a clear, he said, Christ came to reconcile us unto God and giving us the ministry of reconciliation to reconcile one another. There are two things there. One, to be safe. The second one, to live in peace and harmony with your fellow human and your creator.
Dialogue as an alternative dispute resolution mechanism remains most desired tool in a peace-building process for a harmonious and peaceful society.
Okay, let's now from Kaduna go over to Abakaliki for this other report.
Harmony and peaceful coexistence are the bedrock of every ideal society where development thrives. However, from time to time, disagreements occur among members of a society, community, state, or nation, which escalate and breed conflicts, dispute, and sometimes communal wars if not checked. Although Ebonyi State, no doubt, has recorded varying degrees of unrest, dispute and communal clashes that claimed lives and property in previous years, efforts by the state government in mitigating the crisis cut across alternative dispute resolution, including dialogue, establishment of Ebonyi multi-door courthouse for negotiation, conciliation, and arbitration, as well as a mediation center for indigent persons who cannot afford to pay for legal services.
We have intentionally engaged some communities that have had conflict to see how it can be resolved outside courtroom litigation. And I give you an example, the Ebola crisis was effectively resolved through dialogue. Now the Abomege Ishinkwa crisis has been resolved through dialogue. The stage where we are now is the permanent demarcation of the land in dispute.
The Attorney General of the state and other stakeholders, including a legal practitioner and cleric, further harped on the need for citizens to de-emphasize litigation against one another while advocating amicable settlement of disputes, except on severe cases.
In a civil, cases that doesn't require, going to court, you shouldn't go. You can now involve some people, either the church leaders and friends, neighbors, that you know that can handle issues objectively. Then you settle it with a love.
It is worthy of note that since the establishment of the Ebonyi State Mediation Center in July 2023, 68 cases that lingered in conventional courts have been resolved. In Abakaliki, Fortunate Ozo.
Well, we mark here after seeing those reports, but let's go back to Kano studio and once again bring in Ambassador Zaidu Ayuba into the conversation. Well, you are president of the Arewa Youth Consultative Council. The north of Nigeria faces so many challenges. And with that in mind, what would you say are these issues that you think dialogue has failed to address or dialogue cannot really address, in your experience?
The president of the Arewa Youth Consultative Council, at the same time a patriotic Nigerian, I believe that some of the issues that dialogue cannot address is the contemporary issue of frustration and about to be aggression in Nigeria. And then the issue of hunger that is bedeviling the people, especially the youth in this country. Since we accept that dialogue is one of the most fundamental means of resolving conflict, either through mediation, reconciliation, and if it calls for sometime mediation among people, the Nigerian population, especially the youth, with the current news of protest looming, cannot be addressed with the issue of dialogue if the government do not take urgent and emergency action. You see, the government, if truly we want to bring back the peaceful coexistence, the prosperity, the stability, the understanding among the various religious, tribal, ethnic, and all forms of inclination in Nigeria, the government must do 3 to 4 things. One, there are some of the policies the government have taken from the day of inauguration, which the president and his cabinet need to look at them critically, because whatever forms of grievance that is facing the society, as far as hunger, as far as malnutrition, as far as alienation, or all forms of deprivation is included, you cannot resolve those problems without addressing those concerns. People are hungry, seriously. And that the issue, number one is the issue of inflation. The number of skyrocketed rate of inflation going on in Nigeria is very alarming. And there's nothing you can tell ordinary Nigerians, especially the youth, to understand you as far as you did not address the issue of that inflation. You go to a store, buy something at the rate of 200 naira, for example. In the evening, not just tomorrow, it will go back to 1,000. The government have made sincere effort in addressing the issue of minimum wage. That is commendable. All Nigerians should commend the government for doing that. But we should remember that Nigerian workers are less than 40% of the Nigerian population. Over 60% of Nigerian population are not working with the government. And some of them are not working directly with the corporate organizations. Majority are the farmers, the locals, and people doing things to survive on their own. If you can address the issue of minimum wage of 70,000, for example, what about a man who have a larger family of at least 30, 40 children with 4 wives? How do you want to address that particular kind of a man? So fundamentally, the issue of fuel subsidy have ravaged the economy of ordinary Nigerians. The gross domestic product and the GNP of Nigeria may continue to grow because subsidy has been withdrawn. But the economy of an ordinary Nigerian as an individual, especially patriot, is in serious catastrophe. And I advise the government, whatever the government will do, we may achieve success, we may achieve reasonable result in curbing these issues of crisis, these issues of criminality and what have you. But the moment we refuse to address that particular issue of inflation, one, and two, the pump price of petroleum, From the inauguration day that Mr. President announced that subsidy can no longer be paid, that was when marketers had the opportunity to withdraw the subsidy by themselves. And from that very day till today, each of us, all of us, including those who are offline or online, will attest to the fact that Nigerians have been in serious crisis. Number 3 is the issue of insecurity. There's nothing we can do in Nigeria to be able to bring dialogue into limelight as far as we do not address the issue of insecurity. I live in northern Nigeria, and for example, our organization, the Arewa Youth Consultative Council, have a membership of about 3,246,000 members all across the 19 northern states in northern Nigeria. We go to villages, we go to communities. There are places that are impenetrable. You cannot enter because when you go, you know what you face. How do you expect to bring dialogue into limelight when the security of the people is in danger? There's no way, there's no how. So the people, especially in local communities, need to see practical commitment of the government, not theoretical commitment of the government. Because most of these things that has been done by the government are actually commendable, but there are things that only stays in the media, in the pages of the newspaper, and known to those people who are online. Those who are at the grassroots, who are the majority of the population, do not know about what the government are doing. Number 4 is the issue of other representative of the political system. Just like what Doctor said, where is our members' House of Representatives? Where are our senators representing the various senatorial districts? Where are our state governors? They all fold their hands and allow the citizens to begin to hate the federal government. Our members' House of Representatives, senators, and governors are distancing themselves from the public. Some of them are allowing political impunity to ride over them. The moment they win election, they run away from their constituencies and relocate back to Abuja. You will never see them until 3 years after, when they are looking for re-election. We are talking about dialogue, and dialogue for us to be able to regain back our lost glory of prosperity, peace, and stability in Nigeria. These things cannot be achieved if we do not do some of these things. On the other way hand, the other time I talked about other critical stakeholders. Every community have traditional ruler, either a first-class emir, either a second-class emir, or ordinary, let's say, district head or village head. They are afraid for their lives because they believe, what can they explain? How can they communicate to their people at this grassroots? When the government continue, or let me say some representative of the government continue to display a life of affluence, even when the larger population are living in abject poverty. Our traditional rulers are afraid. They don't know how to convince the general public to understand that, look, these problems of crisis, insecurity, and looming forthcoming protests is a very dangerous trend for Nigeria. How will they do it? Now, this is a question that introduced the concept of what needed to be done urgently. Instead of us to be addressing Nigerians only in the televisions, in radio, in newspaper, and online, government, I am happy that I have this opportunity. Government, especially the National Orientation Agency and those responsible, should immediately prepare for a community's engagement in all local communities in Nigeria. Not all, but the entire majority of the local communities in Nigeria. For example, when you take Kaduna State, apart from the city of Kaduna, the likes of Zaria City, Kafanchang, Lere, Ikara, and some of those communities that have bigger population needed to have town hall meetings immediately. This should encompass all traditional rulers, all religious leaders, all critical stakeholders, be them academicians, be them lawyers, be them whatever. Let them come and attend that particular town hall meeting with the inclusion of our representatives, political representatives. Let them come and be able to explain to people, let them understand the nature and the gravity of what is facing us. Because I tell you, when we allow this forthcoming protest to happen, only God knows what will happen. We have seen what happened in NSAS protest. We can remember vividly. Innocent police officers were killed. Their families were affected. Businesses were shut down. Properties worth billions of naira and dollars were wasted. And after the protest, what else? Life continued. People were plunged into further abject poverty. We must address this issue so that it should not take us to where we will leave an abominable trend for our generation yet unborn. All of us have family, or we come from families. When we refuse to address what is common, that may check around Bulgaria, Nicaragua, India, Nepal, every other country that have protests outside the shores of Africa, how do they scale through? Not to talk of the African continent. We have seen what happened in Kenya. As patriotic Nigerians, nobody will want what happened to Kenya to happen in Nigeria. We have seen the case of Libya, from a normal protest to a serious brainwashing that actually attracted the youth like a magnet. They have destroyed their country. Today, Libya is a lawless country. We have seen Sudan, even though Sudan is a fight between two powerful forces, but the issue of Sudan began from a normal protest. We have seen Iraq, we have seen several other countries in North Africa and in the deep Middle East. We shouldn't allow this to happen to us. And for us to be able to do that, first, the government must re-strategize. This policy shouldn't be communicated only in theory. We need to go back to our practical drawing board. The same way those in the position of power go to communities for campaigns, went and campaigned because they want to occupy political offices, let them come back to those communities and educate and reorient those communities so that they should know the impact, the negative problems associated to the issues of protest. Thank you very much.
Mr. Zaidu Ayuba, you've drawn attention to so many issues. And back here in the studio, let me put this across to the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Students' Engagement. Have you seen a shift since you, how well have you been engaging with the students who are, well, of course, considered to be youths? And have you seen an appreciable shift in attitudes and understanding of the issues at stake in a society as complex as Nigeria's? But just before you answer that, we have a caller on the line, Umar Anache, I believe, from Birnin Kebbi. Umar, if you're there, just go ahead.
My name is Umar Anache, calling from Birnin Kebbi.
Yes.
Good evening.
Evening.
Lady and gentlemen. This issue of resolution is bank on communication. The communication is very, very vital. The president needs to communicate to people, to broadcast to Nigeria either tomorrow or the next tomorrow. There is need for that. Then the second issue is the issue of convincing people, convincing Nigerians, convincing ordinary Nigerians like me and you. Then the other issue is understanding the basic. This conflict is centered on two things. Centered on insecurity and food. Nothing more than these two things. Nigerians, we don't need anything rather than to feed ourselves and to move around freely. We don't want to hear anything more than this. Then, if this thing is done, the youth and women and Nigerian masses, generally they will understand Mr. President. He did three things to my notice that are very, very important. One is the local autonomy. That local government autonomy alone can solve many Nigerian problems. Then the other issue is that he introduced student loan. He introduced student loan scheme Let that loan scheme commence. Then finally, he paid or he approved the minimum wage. This minimum wage, you do not take it in monetary terms only. He reduced the terms of reducing the minimum wage to 3 years instead of 5 years or 8 years even. This president has done something that the people need to see the reason and embrace. And secondly, we still respect our traditional rulers and the religious leaders. We still respect them. They have much respect in conflict resolutions. More especially we the Northerners, we respect our traditional rulers. Therefore, the three people need to come there. The first people, they are the National Assembly. All of them have to be mobilized back to their constituency. Let them talk to their people. Then the other issue, the other people are the traditional rulers. Then the third people are the religious leaders. If these people can be mobilized, they can talk to Nigerians and they can listen to them. May God continue to bless our country.
All right.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Umar Anache from Birnin Kebi. Right. So back to the issues I raised, Honorable Sanja Shifa.
Thank you so much. Like I've rightly said, since I came on board as an SSA to the President of Student Engagement, first and foremost, I must appreciate the President by creating this office. And creating this office means the President understands the importance of the student. And the President also understands that that constituency is a very volatile one that needs someone who understands and who can also undo and engage with the student. And ever since that I've came on board, which what I've passed through when I was president of NAS, that I know where true pains and I know what are the agitation of the student. And one of the things that I'll be praying for, that number one, that this promise of Mr. President about student loan, if it comes to pass, I will be happy. And, on the Wednesday, shortly after the president presented the check to some of the students and schools, I went straight to my Facebook and my Twitter and my Instagram, that this is happening during my time. And this gives me a joy, again, to call a meeting of all the student leaders in engaging with them. And as I speak with you today, less than, let me say, 7 hours, I have invited all the SSA to the governors on student matter to Abuja. As I speak to you now, before I came here, 15 people have arrived in Abuja. And what we are trying to do is to form a student management committee that will engage with students at our various states. And, a lot of people have said something. When it's about education, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu really understand the disputes, the issue between the management and the government and the student. The president came on board and he understands that, yes, this issue of increment of school fees, what the manager will tell you that, yes, there is no, they are not being properly funded. So far, so good. This president has invested so much in education through that fund. And as such, he also came on board and said, the 40% deduction in the IGR that you people are collecting, and the government is collecting it, from henceforth, I stop it. The issue of IPPS and UTAS, that was the reason why the students were on strike for 9 months. But the people did not understand, because Other, they masqueraded their own interests under the issue of underfunding of education. The president also saw it, and he removed our lecturers from this. Okay. And let me tell you this, sir. When you look at this, the disconnection of people, government at the grassroots, that is where the problem comes from. And this local government autonomy that has just been given, I want to appeal to our state governors. I want a passionate appeal to our state governor. Let our local government work. Okay. Let me tell you something. I say this now on national TV. If you go to a road that leads to some of the local government, that the local government should be able to do, you will now see it is difficult for a local government to even have a grader that can grade. But, you know, with this, because Ashewaju understand, he understands the area that with the local government,
let me ask you,
a lot of things can be achieved.
We'll return to you. Let's take in this call. Abdul Qadir from Katsina has been on the line. Hello, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
So, good evening.
Good evening.
So, my strong advice is regards to the issue of this dialogue as a means of resolving dispute. So, honestly speaking, Nigerians will place their witness this issue that if government is seriously want to curb the problems, first of all, government will use the cost of living with governing. So we are operating federalism in Nigeria, the systems that have huge amounts of money operating. For example, very recently, federal government awarded contract to rehabilitate the office and the residents of vice was billions of naira. At this critical moment, where there are many people, over half of the population, are battling in having 3 square meters to have billions of naira for rehabilitating the vice president. Where did the Subanjo sit while he was 8 years as vice president? So other issues as regards to the cost of living to president and his entourage ministers, senate presidents, senators, reps, others should have imbibed the culture of reducing their cost of living and the cost of running the government, so that they will divert the remaining balances in doing alleviating poverty, doing so many things that will have direct bearing to the life of Nigerians, especially in the north, where security is a major challenge. I know in Katsina there is I had over 10,000 hectares of land, which this man owning the land used to cultivate at least 100 up to 1,000, 3,000 bags of rice, millet, others. So for about 6, 7 years, 10 years, that man will not cultivate this land because of insecurity. So there is the need for the government to invest largely and hugely in security as regards to this issue, so that Nigerians, especially in the north, who depend on farming as the best and the proper way of living, you go to the land to cultivate. This is in the rainy season. Many of farms in northern Nigeria are no longer cultivated due to security. So those who are cultivating as the means of life, now they are hanging around beaches and others, causing mayhem in so many quarters. So government needs to address this issue of security. If they reduce their cost of living, cost of running the government, so they will invest this to the government.
All right.
To the issue.
So thank you very much, Abdul Qadir from Katsina. Yeah, well, back here, we see that a lot has been achieved through arts, entertainment, music, productions, and things like that. Messages have been passed across, and you have always helped on communication. How so can this be used to galvanize the people? As they say, as you've heard, a hungry man is an angry man, and people would not ordinarily listen until a message that addresses their issues gets to them. How can film be utilized to engage in dialogue?
I love this one. I actually really love this. Now, it's beautiful to use films because most of the communities where we have gone to as Love to the World initiative, we've used drama. We've come to places where the people do not, if you speak, they may forget. So we use drama. We use the languages that they understand to pass across what we want to say. Sometimes we use music to pass across what we want to say to them, to be able to convince them that this is the right way to go and this is the way. So it's something that if the government really can support, everybody talks about government support. Well, of course, you know we don't wait for some government support. You know that. Love to the World initiative, we just go and contribute.
Well, the creative industry really
yes.
carves one out for itself.
Yes. So the way it works is this. If government can really like bring your policies and let us understand why the policy and how it's going to work. If we understand it, then we have a buy-in into what you're doing, then we can work with that. We did Where Will You Run To If You Destroy Nigeria, because we saw the picture, we saw what was going to happen in Nigeria at those times. In fact, it's even apps, and I think you guys can have it again free. With that, you can use it. So we still need National Orientation Agency to come. We still need we need the local governments. We need the House of Rep members. Even the State House of Assembly members to really get to work. And we can put all of this together and then, of course, work into the films, into the drama, into music. If I'm a singer and I'm hungry and I don't government policies and I think that it's because of government that I'm even suffering what I'm suffering, I will sing Nigeria Jaga Jaga for you. That's what I will sing. But if I understand that this policy government came on board with, this is what is meant to address, and I understand even what government is going through, because honestly speaking, I worked with different organizations and how to lead people at different levels. It's not easy to lead people. There were times I walked away and said, you're waiting for your leader today. I'm no longer your leader. I'm out of here. You know, even though I had everything after, it's not easy. So you must communicate. You must bring everybody to the table to understand what you're doing. For example, if you say you're removing subsidy, which has always come up in this conversation, right? It's possible, I don't work with them, so I don't know what happened, but I'm just assuming that it's possible that they actually remove subsidy. And then, of course, Naira is floated, value has reduced. And then, of course, because the value reduces, the landing cost has also increased because the dollar is now more expensive than it used to be before. Now, if you import petrol at that point, the price is going to be higher. If government comes back to tell people who are already crying about 600 naira per litre to now pay 1,000 naira, how is that going to be? So if they secretly even bring, subsidy back to the table, it may be because they do not want, I'm assuming, they do not want the cost to be too high on Nigerians. But how about issues? Exactly. How about communicating this thing clearly for everyone to understand that, look, this is what has happened to all of us. So just bear with us. We are working hard on it. Okay. If we musicians understand this, if we film producers understand what you're doing, we will work with you. We will work with targets. We will not do films that actually advertise kidnapping and different kind of things that are not morally okay.
All right. Yeah. Dr. Togo, must disputes and protests necessarily be destructive? If we go back in history, there were times when protests had taken place in society that had led to a change for the better. So must protests be destructive?
You know, at times too, conflict provides an opportunity for change.
Right.
You get the point, and at times too, the build-up, you know, to what we are saying now actually will naturally, you know, make for some level of awareness and adjustment, you know, within the system. Recall that I had mentioned here that there is no government in the world, you know, that wants to punish its citizens or makes its citizens suffer, because the primary responsibility of any government is the welfare and the well-being of its citizens. So I can assure you that naturally, the hyperinflation, the pressure, you know, and the stress on the population will go down well, you know, in the minds, you know, and the hearts, you know, of policymakers and power holders who are in government. And I can assure you that there will be natural adjustment, both from the sides, you know, of the executive branch as well as the legislative branch. But we need to get the governors, which is the next line of action, like Asefon has actually mentioned. You know, we need to get them, you know, to do their bit. In the narrative of conversations, you know, national discourse, the governors are missing. You know, so the president, of course, is the number one person, so he's in the front line. But the governors need to take responsibility. That is the 36 states. You know, need to take responsibility. Gladly, the Minister of FCT is doing his bits, you know, in the FCT. We need 174 local government to function, you know, for us to have the country that we desire. And that's the truth. Mr. President should be focusing more on issues around defense, security, foreign policy, you know, and some of this other thing. They must provide that governance platform, you know, and the governors need to do their bit. Now, and that's the truth. Because if the governors are not doing their bit, it's going to be a cycle, you know, from 1999 up till date. It's just going to be a cycle. We're going to be going through a cycle. Right. So I believe that there is that conversation with the Nigerian Governors Forum as well as the presidency, you know, for us to tinker things, do things around. We can no longer afford the luxury of the way we've been doing things in the past. That is why we must align our support and energies and resources towards making this particular system work. We can't afford that luxury, and that's the truth.
Phones now, we have Dan calling in from Kaduna. Hello, Dan. Go ahead. Hello. Hello. Okay, we don't have Dan on the line.
It's gone.
Right, fine. Let's, we'll have to, we lost that call. Just wanted to be sure about that. But.
All right. Hello?
Yes, so who's on the line?
Hello?
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 Yes, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hello?
Oh dear.
Yes. My name is Shati. Hello?
Please introduce yourself, tell us your name and where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Kaduna State.
Right, go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, go ahead.
Should I say good morning? It's afternoon.
Just go ahead.
Yes, I want to say one or two things. Okay. Yes, the issue of the protest that is about to happen. Really, the issue.
By the way, did you turn down the volume of your TV set? Can you just cut the audio so that you can speak to us directly and avoid the hurlback? I see you wait to hear your echo before you continue. Can you do that for me, please? All right, we'll just go ahead. Let's get back to our Kano studio. And yes, as we just have a few more minutes left on the program, let me come back to you, the president of the Arewa Consultative Youth Council. As we begin to wind down, what is the best way out of the current situation?
I want us to remember that protest is a fundamental human right to every individual. And it is important when citizens voice out their grievances. But the most important way out of this issue, one, I want to use this opportunity to call every law enforcement agent, be it in the DSS, in the police, in the military, to understand that you don't always use force to suppress an issue. The human relation technique can help you to address issues that may have aggravated into something bigger. So far, we have recorded cases of arrest of people who are either printing shirts in relation to protest, or people who are posting invitation for protest or whatever. We are actually living in a volatile situation. For several years, Nigeria has been living so fragile, and it is our responsibility to manage the little peace we have. We don't have to be arresting these young men and women for us to be able to suppress whatever is it they are planning. There is a code that said police is your friend. So DSS is your friend. The military personnel is your friend. Everybody who is wearing khaki is a friend to a youth. Instead of us to be arresting these young men, I think it's important if every security establishment in every state quickly work to see how will they collaborate with relevant, important bodies to be able to see how are they going to invite the organizers of this protest. These young men have the right to protest, but let us not make them see as if they are about to commit a crime. It is a fundamental, a very important segment of their right. But let us find ways to see how we will educate them, number one. Number two, the government should quickly find ways to see how they will go into community engagement. Just like how earlier said, there is ample time for the government to be able to do this. Let there be an instruction. Every minister should go back to where he come from. Instead of working in Abuja, let's see how he will go back to his state and work together with his state governor, even if he is from a different party. When we talk about protest and a looming danger coming ahead, it is not about a political party or a social status, whether you are rich or poor, whether you are educated or not, whether you are in Abuja or in Birnin Kebbi or Kano or anywhere. It is about a future that nobody can tell. And we are hoping God Almighty will protect us from that danger. Every single government appointee, a political appointee, should have no business in Abuja for the next possibly 1 week. You should go back for an effective community engagement downstairs. Number three, just like how I earlier mentioned, we need to see a change in certain policies. I know, because I had a master's in public policy and administration, policies aren't made in a day. It takes time, but there's an executive veto, a presidential veto. With a single order, a lot of things can change. Let us begin to see changes in the way things are sold in the market. Let us begin to see in the, a body language that will show that every state executive actually have concern for the general public. And then the last option, which is very important, that is an option to the general public. Some of our citizens, especially the youth, think it is when we come out to protest that our voices could be heard. No. Sometimes you are having good intention. You are trying to do something good because you want to fight for your right. At the end of the day, you may end up collapsing your life. We should all sit down and see how can we give, how can we contribute. We all know ourselves. In every state, when you ask me, in every community, over 11,000 communities in northern Nigeria and part of south, I can tell you who should you contact that could be able to assist you in mobilization. So we know ourselves. We know who have the capacity and the capability able to communicate among themselves. It's just like a phone call. We can wire among ourselves and communicate. Instead of us to come out and violently force our ways into the street, let us be able to talk to ourselves and amongst ourselves. We can resolve these issues. And then a very important segment of this protest is the women group. A lot of people are actually forgetting about the women. They are mothers of our society. They give birth to every youth. They give birth to every father and every whoever. Women can assist us in speaking to their children. We shouldn't forget about them, because this thing, only God knows what is going to happen. We have seen it in the past. And with the way it is coming, I'm very surprised that today in northern Nigeria, people are beginning to accept protest. A lot of people that I knew in the past who stood shoulder to shoulder with me, struggled against the NSAS protest because we didn't believe in it, are today ready, swearing with their life that they are ready to come out and protest, even if that will be their last day on earth. This is scary. And I am happy that today an SSA to the president is in this show, and I believe that many powerful executives in this government might be looking at this program, because I'm saying it on the national TV. We are patriots, but we cannot do this alone. Even we that are saying that no to protest, a lot of people think that the government give us money. But no, we all have families, we all have children, we all have businesses. And we know the kind of country we have. We are only afraid that if we mistakenly allow this protest to start, only God knows the end of a fire. He who starts a fire only knows how the fire starts, but nobody knows how the fire will go and how far it will go. It's just like a wildfire. Maybe someone somewhere is eyeing the kind of shirt you wear, or is eyeing the kind of car you are driving, and he's angry. The moment protests start, he is not a protester, but he is just an awaiting owner of your car or of your clothes. All he needs to do is to get rid of you and own you. This is how Libya began. And we don't pray for it. Finally, I must say that we must learn to accept and respect constituted authority. We are not equal in this life. Our religious leaders, our traditional leaders, our political leaders wish well for us. They don't actually open up to speak to us because they are afraid that if they speak to us, we may end up condemning them or accusing them or lying on their names, you know. But deep down their heart, every patriotic Nigerian who is conscious enough will tell you that protest anywhere in the world, even though we have seen how French Revolution began, the American Revolution, most of this began as a protest and end up coming up to a positive revolution. But in the sub-Saharan Africa, protests may hardly yield something positive. The most important thing, if you are angry about any policy or if you are angry about any political office holder, your voter's card, wait for the right time to vote, and actually come out to send him back home. That's all I can say.
Thank you so very much, Ambassador Zaidu Ayuba, National President, Arewa Youth Consultative Council, who joined us from Kano Studio. Thank you very much. We appreciate your participation. Thank you. All right. Okay, back here. Honorable Sunday Ashifon, SSA to the President and students engagement. As we wind down, what are your closing comments?
Thank you so much. Indeed, I'm happy to be here today, and I've listened very carefully to my mother, my father, and my brother, who have indeed offer a very chill water to the minds of Nigerian youths in this country. You know, he rounded it up with a lot of messages, a message of hope, and which to me are as a necessary to the president. Like I said, this government is just 1 year, and it's not a rocket science. They have to be patient with the president. I still want to appeal to them to be more patient. Like I've said, as I necessary to the president, if there's any policy of the government that we have failed to take down to them, we will amend. And again, I also want to say this. The responsibility has been saddled on us now. It has been saddled on us, and we must work harder. We must work more to get the policy of the president, programs of the president, the new acronym, to the students' vote, to the youth vote. And I want to appeal to every youth. Protest. If you are saying, yes, the president is aware. The governors are aware now. The ministers, senators, rep members, everybody is aware. Your yearnings, your voice has been heard by the government. And as such, just need to be calm, a little bit patient with this government. I can assure you, Achiwaju is there to take us to our Eldorado. He's there to take us, to give us a Nigerian of our dream, if we are patient with him.
All right.
Thank you so much.
So thank you very much. Your closing comments. In the few minutes we have to go, Dr. Josephine Ogali Abraham.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so to fellow Nigerians, please, I'd love to use this opportunity to tell you that we're together. Protests will not solve our problems, because no matter how peaceful we want it to be, it's not going to end the way we planned it, and it will not solve our problems. And to Mr. President, please, we love you. Come out and talk to us.
Okay.
Just come and tell Nigerians that you have already heard their complaints and that there's no need of protest, and you're already working on all the complaints. Just do this for us so that the protest doesn't have to happen. And to National Orientation Agency, to every agency, what we need is a value reorientation and not protest. We need value reorientation from the grassroots to the highest of the highest. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Dr. Joseph Uchogu, well, this is your turf.
I think that on the side of the government, not only the federal government, but the state government as well as the local government and other institutions and agencies of government, what we need at this critical time is a broader stakeholders engagement, of all citizens, across the respective divide in terms of women group, youth group, faith-based organizations, NGOs, community-based organizations, traditional institutions, national road transport workers, and everybody, so that we can have one voice and enlightened citizenship, for a brighter future for Nigeria. We cannot afford to lose these golden opportunities for positive changes to happen. We are already making the sacrifice as citizens, as people. The point now is that we need to begin to move towards where the sacrifices will take us to in terms of the dividends, the gains, that we need to. And finally, I think that the market needs to be a little bit of regulation in terms of the level of hyperinflation, which is causing a lot of social instability, within the system. You can't just put price, in any commodity the way you want, the way we see in the marketplaces and all that. I think that the agencies at the federal level that are responsible for price management, price stability and other things, we need to work all together. The transport unions, everybody, the security people, on the roads, on checkpoints and all that. We must work together to liberate ourselves. All right. Yeah, I think that we must do that, to help ourselves out of this. This thing is not a government alone thing; it's a whole of society, and a whole of government approach for us to get over these things.
All right, thank you so much, and let me once again thank all our guests tonight who joined in this conversation. Dr. Joseph Uchogu, who just finished speaking, thank you. Dr. Josephine Abraham, thank you so much. And Sunday Ashifon, thanks. And of course, Ambassador Zaidu Ayuba. We'd also like to thank all those who called in for staying with us up till this point. That's our program today. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Bye for now.